going live, so
Yeah, all good.
and then it starts like sending out alerts. So, but we're live. So, do you guys have a full agenda for Hispanic Heritage Month?
Yeah. No,
I
not
don't
really.
know.
No, things to do and
Things to
places to go.
post. Yeah,
Things to post.
things to post.
Is that the one thing like in your business right now that's helping you like get marketing and get
Yeah.
people? It's just posting.
Social media is
Yeah.
huge. Yeah,
Really?
it really is a big generator of interest more than anything, which ultimately becomes clients sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a powerful tool, certainly.
Or at least like also to creating the awareness.
Yes.
Because people always ask me, it's like like you're on social media, a lot. It's like, does it, help you create business? I'm like more. I don't look at it for creating business. I look at it for creating awareness.
Right.
Because that's the one thing that it does. Beyond that, then it's the value proposition, right? It kind of goes back to old school. It's like if they see value in what you're offering, then they're gonna, they'll click through and then follow the steps. But if it doesn't do that, then they won't follow through. So then at the end, it ends up being um, like just like good old marketing, like just like leaving a flyer on, like back in the old days, like leaving a flyer on someone's window and
Right.
then hoping that it would create some kind of awareness. So I think we should start. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So hello and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. My name is Alfonso Barrera and I am the founder of Hispanic Pro, the Hispanic Professional Network, and the host of the Diversity Matters podcast. This is a special episode dedicated to the spirit of Hispanic entrepreneurship today on this Latino Business Day. Starting a business has become the new American dream for Latino communities to create wealth, equity, and opportunity. There are an estimated 4.65 million Hispanic-owned businesses in the U.S., making them the fastest growing segment of the small business community in this nation. Joining us on the Diversity Matters podcast are Noeli Cerna, founder, attorney of Cerna Legal Services, and Ray Rivera, who is the president of CSI 3000 and CAN Transport. As a fellow entrepreneur myself, I can't wait to start today's conversation. So let's begin. Ray, I'll start with you. Tell us about you and your background.
Well, thanks for having me today. A little bit about me, lifelong Chicagoan, lifelong resident of the Pilsen community, product of the Chicago public school education system, single dad for such a long time, now married with 4 wonderful kids, company that is going on 13 years now with 65 plus employees and taking deep breaths every day.
Awesome. And Noeli.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Noeli Cerna. As you mentioned, I'm the founding attorney of Cerna Legal Services. I am the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, first in my family to go to college, law school, and a formational piece of my own personal history is that my parents opened a fast food restaurant when I was 5. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, small business owners, which has led me now to creating my own law firm where I do represent primarily Latino-owned businesses and entrepreneurs. So just bringing me back full circle in my own career and profession. But otherwise, have been practicing law for about 6.5 years, proud Chicagoan from the south suburbs, and really excited to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. And it's great that, you grew up in an entrepreneurial family, but I think that also meant that you had no weekends. You had to work for your parents.
I
right, the
didn't
whole
know
time.
what Saturday morning cartoons were.
Yeah.
Never knew. Yeah.
I grew up mowing lawns with my dad, so I didn't know what weekends were.
Yeah.
When kids would be watching Saturday morning cartoons, I was out pushing a lawnmower already at 7:00 in the morning.
Yes.
So, but it made me who I am now, and it taught me a lot of lifelong lessons that I think people they run across them or they hit that road later on in life, and I had to experience those very early on. So, and I think it's better to learn it earlier, so that way you make
Yes.
less mistakes as you go on.
Agree.
So, let me ask you, what was the reason you became an entrepreneur, and how long have you been on your entrepreneurial journey, Noeli?
Yeah, so I have been on my entrepreneurial journey for a whopping 4.5 months, so a very short period of time, though I have been practicing law for 6.5 years. What drove me to this moment are just different building blocks along the way. I practiced law in two big international law firms, went in-house as corporate counsel for 2 years, and expanded my corporate practice to the point where I saw a former colleague from a law firm start her own law firm and was curious, started talking to her about it. She became my mentor over the course of maybe 4 or 5 months. And I learned that that was a potential path for myself in my legal career and journey. And I realized at that point that I could take my career and make it what I wanted it to be and help the people that I thought needed it most, especially with my background as in a small family owned business, my Spanish speaking skills. I thought the next step for my career is something that I want to wake up in the morning and feel really excited to do. And I decided to take that leap of faith and serve the community that I think needs it most.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I found interesting about you making that leap into entrepreneurism is that there are a lot of Latinos who worked in a professional setting before and now are breaking off and starting their own businesses. And I actually, I had this talk with someone who would be a potential sponsor, and it's like, no, that doesn't exist, or they're like, we want to, you want to fund the taquerias and all that. I'm like, you know what? There's this big segment of the Latino population, and they want to give back to their community. They want to take what they do already for a living, but help, help their community, help others.
Yeah.
And I think that you're part of that. You're part of that group of folks that did the professional work. Or part of a professional workforce, and now it's like, I'm going to strike out on my own. So I found that interesting, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And Ray.
So I've been on my entrepreneurial journey for 25 plus years. I mean, we've known each other for close to 20 years now.
Yeah.
Similarly, my father had a small business, so I got to see the triumphs and some of the failures of just owning a small business and the struggle. Started my first business actually when I was 17 years old. So started going through the journey from marketing. I've owned was in the restaurant business. Currently own a construction firm. We build bridges, roads. You get to dodge all of the traffic day to day. About 65 employees now, but just having the skills, and again, missing those Saturday mornings, missing every summer. Trying to figure this out, trying to figure out the journey along the way. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. And especially like, in construction, it's not easy work, and not everyone does it, So, and I think also it takes a certain skill, right? Because, my brother-in-law owns a construction company, and, my nephew went to work for him for the summer, and he ended up losing a toe.
Oh, wow.
My nephew. So, but thankfully he got, reattached, and, he doesn't walk with a limp or anything like that. He's out, at least to himself, he's 100% complete. But yeah, it's hard work. And, and the thing is that these are things that we all need, right? Doesn't matter what race, what ethnicity, where you come from. We all need, things to be, to work well. And construction is one of those things. And it's also things that you can put off, but at some point, it has to get done. It has to get done. And so, yeah, thank you for what you do. And also for, I look at your LinkedIn page and employing a lot of Latinos. And I think that's incredible. I think that's awesome. We can do the work, and we can do the work, and we can do it well. And we have been doing it for many, many years. So, yeah, I think also with all the budgets and all these things that are happening in the state of Illinois, I think being in construction, it's the right place to be.
Yeah, no, it's been a game changer lately. I think with all of the funding coming through, for infrastructure, we're able to employ a lot of people. People are able to send their kids to college, buy homes. It's been really empowering, for our community.
Yeah, and isn't it cool that yeah, because of what you do, like you said, your employees are buying homes. They're buying cars. They're sending their kids to school. I mean, all these things that if you weren't there, then who knows. So I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
So, according to a recent Stanford University study, over the last 10 years, the number of Latino-owned businesses in the U.S. has grown 44% compared to just 4% for all other ethnicities. Why do you think Latinos are creating more businesses in the United States today? Noeli.
Gosh, such a multifaceted question, but it's a great statistic to know as well. So, two things that come to my mind. One, I think our Latino community and our culture is grounded on grit, on getting ahead. I think of Si Se Puede, right? And for Mexico in particular. And that's just part of our culture is we want to make it ahead and we're going to find the next best way to do it. And we're not afraid to do the work. And that goes at the same time with maybe a more unfortunate piece of corporate America in particular is that sometimes you will see that there is more of a difficulty for minority communities to climb that corporate ladder to the point where maybe you have to decide, okay, if I can't climb more here, what are my next best options? And entrepreneurship tends to be a phenomenal next option to make of your career whatever trajectory that you want it to be and to be successful in your own definition of what that means. So I think it's a combination of our culture, our determination, and our ambition to get ahead, even under circumstances where we may otherwise not be able to.
Yeah, and I think our culture, we're very entrepreneurial, and we get pushed into, in going that route. It could be, you could be a professional or you could be someone that is just down and out. And I'm like, I can't find a job. So then it's like, now what can I do to where I can start a business? And in both situations, it's like, I always believe it's like, you're in a good situation in the sense of starting your own business. I always say, bet on yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing more than you can do. That if you do better, bet on yourself. I wouldn't give someone that advice if, they had a family of, 6 kids, right? And a wife and, and a mortgage and all that, then I would say, go and look for keep, look harder, definitely. But, and especially how the economy is and even in periods where there's, some people say there's a recession, other people don't, but when la rachera is like $8.99 a pound, I think there's a recession going on, right? So, but still, I don't think it's a bad time to start a business. So, Ray, what do you think?
It's I always like to equate this question back to the immigrant hustle. The last time Valentine's Day, February rolled around, and next thing you know, all these pop-up shops come around. You go to a festival here in Chicago, and the paletero, he's out there. The elote man just pops up. It's who we are. It's ingrained in us. And then you look at the intergenerational values that our parents, our grandparents, the work ethic, the ability to work through issues and triumphs. It's just instilled in who we are day to day. So,
yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, and when you say like when they're out there, for Valentine's Day and doing the hustle, I mean, that I think there's a segment of the Latino population where that's like every day, or that's like every weekend, beyond them having what they do for 9 to 5, then the side hustle, it's like, man, it's like they got to do one other thing to supplement their income, and then I always cheer for the person who has that side hustle and wants to turn it into a full-time endeavor. But I always tell people, whatever your high side hustle is, don't do it for more than 2 years, because personally, I can't work with you if you're trying a side hustle, because that tells me that you're not fully dedicated to this one thing that you're selling me on, or do you want me to be part of? So I would tell you that my business, in being the founder of Hispanic Pro and creating the programming that we do for ERGs and BRGs, that didn't expand until I started doing this full time, because then the companies that gave me money, the corporate sponsors and the people that are in HR roles or whatever, they saw that I was doing this full time and I was fully committed. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing, though, being fully committed and dedicated, because they're also putting their name on the line for you.
Yeah. Actually, I started this business as a side hustle. Was living in a basement apartment, just myself and my daughter, and I just wanted more. And for me to fund this company, I was actually pursuing my master's degree at the time, and I used my student loans to fund the company, fund projects. And so what came from a side hustle, it's turned into what we have today.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, that's one way of alternative lending, right? And how to fund
Yeah,
how to fund the
creative,
business.
yes.
So very, very creative. So kudos to you for that on that. So and this is something that I wanted to inject, personally, because of me being an entrepreneur and doing this for 15 years, that every year in the weeks leading up to Hispanic Heritage Month, I read articles and postings on social media by so-called diversity and inclusion gurus and self-proclaimed experts about how Latinos should minimize or get rid of flag food and fun. It always becomes a big, issue, and many create a whole conversation around that where it lasts like 4 hours. Like that literally is their whole theme of Hispanic Heritage Month. And when I look deeper in the backgrounds of these gurus and these people that maybe they don't have wrong intentions, right? But what they're proposing is wrong. At least I believe that, because they all have, and I look and there's an underlying thread in which case many of them don't speak Spanish. The people that are proposing this, or if they speak Spanish, they don't command it well. They don't speak it well. And so, I wanted to ask you, how important is speaking Spanish and identifying with culture in what you do in your business?
Oh, for mine, it's hugely important. So especially because I do dedicate myself to the Latino business community,
Mhm.
I do use my Spanish more than I ever have in my professional career. And it makes a huge difference. It really does. When I get on the phone and I can tell that they're struggling a little bit to speak English and I suddenly jump into Spanish, you can just hear it. You can see it on the Zoom. Their faces completely change, the tone of their voice. They're suddenly comfortable, excited that somebody on the other side is going to understand what they need, what they're looking for, and hopefully will then provide them with the services and explanations that they need. So at least in my line of business, it's hugely important. And it's something that I capitalize on every single day. And I'm very grateful to my parents, because maybe not everybody has the opportunity to learn it, but my parents did teach it to me, and I would never take away the value of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I'm not so easy on people, because I see people that get master's degrees and PhDs and all these advanced degrees. I'm like, could have taken Spanish on the way along the way, right? Because it's important.
It is.
I mean, especially if you're trying to sell yourself on culture, and how great our culture is, and how great our people are here in the United States, and how the population is growing, and all the wonderful things that Latinos are doing and we are yet to do. It's like I really think that you can't do those things without understanding the Spanish language and speaking it, because I think that's, I can see how people lose language because they cross an ocean, but a lot of us, our parents only crossed the river, which is not that far away. So our homelands, our native lands are not that far away, and so that's why we really don't lose the traditions, the food, the celebrations of all the days that are important to us, back from our homeland. So I think, and then if we can use that as a competitive advantage now in this day, to grow our businesses, or maybe to attract talent. That's another thing, because people feel comfortable speaking in their own language.
Right.
And I think when you start taking those things away, we feel, maybe not attacked is the word, but definitely we feel like where we come from, the things that we can contribute, it gets diminished.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and I can't speak to the DEI gurus, but I can tell you a little about myself, my organization. It's also remembering that Latinos in general, we have people who are raised here, who were born here. They have no connection to Latino culture. Some people haven't even stepped into Latin America.
Yeah.
So add on to that, you have young professionals who've had to learn to assimilate and acculturate, to walk into rooms that we've never walked into before. So there's a disconnect, and we begin to lose our language and lose a disconnection with our culture. What's important, though, is professionals like ourselves who continue to ensure that culture is part of who we are, what we do as an organization, it's important for me, at least, to ensure I'm communicating with my peers, with my staff in a language that they're comfortable with. I want to empower them. I think most of my tradesmen and women, their first language is Spanish. And if they're not empowered to build these great things here in Chicago, how do I empower them? Yeah, how do I ensure that they can communicate effectively? I've walked into a lot of rooms with a lot of white guys, and my focus was speak Spanish. I want to ensure that we empower our people, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, and especially in what you do, Ray, in the sense of you have Latinos who may not command the English language well, but you gotta make sure that they understand what's going on, because they could get injured. When it comes to OSHA and all these things, worker safety, they need to understand whether it's English or in Spanish. The point has to get across to them, but they also have to know, this is a dangerous thing that you're doing. And construction it's not easy work, but I think it's a great area to be in, because it pays well. It pays well, and I think like you had mentioned before, that it changes lives.
It does.
So in any way that I think that we can keep culture alive, I think we're moving La Raza forward, but we're also helping. We're also helping ourselves in distinguishing ourselves as having something that could be a competitive advantage that someone else that probably does the same thing that we do or similarly, but they lack that. So and I'm all about competition, and you have to have it. They has to be there. But ultimately, I mean, in the best scenarios are to not have any competition and for you to be number one, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we should strive for.
I will say that as a Spanish-speaking attorney, there's a lot less competition, so a lot of value.
Yeah. See, that's awesome, and that's one thing. It's like because like you had mentioned, I remember being a child, and having my mom called, whether it was People's Gas or whoever, and get an explanation. But whenever she did get through to someone who speak the Spanish language, and communicate in Spanish, like just the relief on her face it was amazing, and so that way she didn't have to rely on us, because I didn't know what I was saying, right? I'm 10 years old, I'm 12 years old, what do I know? But yeah, so definitely I think it's a great tool to have in our toolkit.
Yes.
So let me ask, is there an organization or a resource that was instrumental in helping you launch your business, Noeli?
So I was very purposeful about what organizations I reached out to, especially as I was first launching the firm. I will say that so many of the chambers of commerce in the Chicagoland area, be it, I can name a few, the Aurora Hispanic Chamber, the Northwest Hispanic Chamber, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber. You, Alfonso, have been a phenomenal resource. And I purposely reached out to chambers and organizations that worked in demographic or geographic areas that had a high Latino population, because that was the client that I wanted to be able to most reach out to and ultimately serve. So those organizations, one, they give just phenomenal services to the community, and many times free services and resources. And two, they've acted as wonderful referral sources to me, because now they know that there is an attorney that has the best interests of these businesses at heart, and they're excited to be able to refer them to me and see how I can help them as well. So can't say enough about chambers and the small business development centers in the area.
Yeah, and those are all things that you don't have to spend any money on advertising or anything. Maybe the investment you make in becoming a member,
right?
But otherwise, and I think it's also great for entrepreneurs to join chambers, because then they become your advocate.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely.
Right.
Companies first, like Hispanic Pro, source of information. That's a plug right there. So
thank you, thank you, Ray.
And also, organizations like Goldman Sachs, 10,000 small businesses.
There's $100 under your seat.
I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a number of organizations. HACIA, currently led by Jackie Gomez, Illinois Hispanic Chamber, led by Jaime De Pablo, just doing great things, getting information across the table to small businesses, mid-sized businesses, offering programs, educational services. There's been a ton of information out there. It's just reaching out and getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you mention like Jackie or Jaime, they're not people that sit behind a desk and and that's how they run their organizations. They're out there, and they're meeting with their members, and they're meeting their members where they're at.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that gives a lot more meaning to the organization when it comes to, well, do they really value their members? Do they understand their members? And so I think that they do. And so I see us always on a tear when it comes to all the workshops that they do, almost like every month, and all everything that has to do with when it comes to lending, when it comes to even things with OSHA and worker safety, all these things that are or introducing small Latino businesses to bigger players, right? To that where you can attach as a subcontractor. So I think that's awesome. And Jaime does exactly the same thing. And so he's always out there and trying to see how to connect small businesses, but also this thing that he's done with the tech incubator. So, and looking forward and looking ahead into where Latinos can also, why can't we, build a unicorn company and have a valuation of, $500 million, it's like, I hope we do that. And a Latino does that. And I think we have the knowledge, we have the ganas, I think we do. And we just, I think that some of the elements that are missing is just, the general population, believing in us, believing in that we can do it. So, but I think if more success stories about us are published as opposed to stories about, the things that, that Latinos do bad, which is like every other person does those bad things, right? But for some reason, minorities, when it's their turn and when they did it, it's amplified and magnified. And I think there's a certain responsibility by media to kind of get it right, and that's something I think that needs to be worked on. But I think hopefully we'll get there, and that's one thing that Latinos don't understand is our voice.
Yep.
And it's like if we start demanding things, then I think we're going to get closer to getting it, because in our culture, we don't demand for things.
No.
We put our head down, we do the work,
Yes.
and then we hopefully they will give it to us, whether it's our boss, whether it's society, whether it's our church or whoever. And we have to own what we do more, and we have to kind of toot our own horn. And in our culture, it is not looked upon as a good trait, right? Because quien se cree, but we have to do those things. If we don't do those things, then it's like no one's going to know who you are. They're not going to know what you're doing or what you can do for others, which I think is very important.
And there's so much money and opportunities too. I think of like MBE certification, especially for the construction industry, but you don't know to go after those things unless maybe you hear it from someone. But doing that and taking the effort to go and get that certification, for example, it opens so many doors, and I think we have to continue to push for it.
Yeah, and going back to like it's a competitive edge,
Right.
you don't have you have other companies that I think if you put that out there, it's like, hey, look at me. I have that certification.
Right.
I went through the training. I went through all those hours, and I paid the money, to be a company of distinction.
Right.
So let me ask you, what are some of the major challenges that are faced by Latino entrepreneurs?
So I think lack of access to resources, like we've been talking about, particularly entrepreneurs that are more comfortable with Spanish or that is their first and primary language. I think it's very unfortunate how much of a lack of resources, even from webinars to just pamphlets and information that are in the Spanish language. So I think the language barrier has always been a great impediment to the Latino entrepreneurial community. And I think we have to work better to make it more accessible to our community.
Okay.
Certainly agree with the resources, but also mentorship and peer development.
Yeah.
This stigma of I'm an entrepreneur, everything is great. And I think any entrepreneur will tell you that it doesn't work like that every day. along with professional development for young professionals coming through the ranks, how do we ensure that we're communicating with each other, we're leaning on each other? We all have bad days as entrepreneurs, and sometimes we can't tell our team members.
Right.
We need to be able to lean on each other with honesty and vulnerability. Say, hey, this is happening to me right now. How would you navigate this? We need to ensure we are communicating.
Yeah, and I see that more with Latina business owners, that they create those circles. Latinos don't, because I think I don't want to create that stereotype of it's the machismo or anything, but I think we don't like to express that, and I think women do it because it's like they see that it's a way of creating a solution. So it's totally different. They view it in a whole different way than men do. It's like because in some way I think men are accepting failure when we disclose it, where I think women are like, how can I create a solution? What did I do wrong? And then what's the one thing, the workaround, so that I do, maybe, do the same action, doing it. I want the same result, but I'll do a different action and get what I want.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we're following the women who are leading the way. So
absolutely, yeah. And what women are, that segment of the Latino population that are creating more businesses in this country. So I think they got us right.
They do.
Proud
Yeah,
of
I'm pretty
that,
sure they do.
yeah.
Yeah. So and when I ask what are some of the major challenges faced by Latino entrepreneurs, I for the last 3 years I've been the chair of diversity and inclusion for the Chicago chapter of SCORE. So SCORE is a national federal not-for-profit that provides a business mentorship for people that come to SCORE, and for free and no cost, or webinars now that we have, or workshops at very little cost. And access to capital is one of the big things that Latino entrepreneurs always talk about, and they don't even know where to start. And one thing that I think that Latinos we don't do as good as the general population is that we don't have a relationship with bankers. We don't have a relationship with people that have money, right? And we have to create those things, and we have to kind of stop thinking that I can go forward with the business just off of my own, of what I create, and fund the business from myself. There is ways to grow, and we don't necessarily see that right away, but there's partnerships. You can partner with someone. Alternative lending, that's a big thing, as well. And then sometimes we probably don't even have to start a business. Maybe we can look at a franchise that is kind of similar to something that we want to do, and they already have all the marketing and everything that it's like a business in a box, so I think those are we have to, if we don't do it ourselves, and I hope that more people go to organizations like SCORE. Chicago has the third largest chapter for SCORE, and we have over 100 mentors. So I have spent the last three years advocating for SCORE, letting people know what SCORE is, and also pairing up Latinos with entrepreneurs who have done it already, who have started a business, been successful at it, sold it, and then the true definition of a serial entrepreneur: started another business, grew it, sold it, and not necessarily starting 10 businesses at once and see which one is successful. And that's not serial entrepreneurism. That's kind of like what all these venture capital firms do, right? They throw a whole bunch of money at the wall and see what sticks.
Right. And I can personally attest to the SCORE mentor program too. I've had 2 great mentors. They were solo practitioners, learned a lot from them. So highly encourage that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
See, we have testimonial here, of the success of SCORE.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what is the most rewarding aspect of being your own boss? Right.
Oh, I'd love to tell you more me time, but I think as entrepreneurs, that it doesn't happen as you're in the grind. The journey, I think, is the easiest way I can explain it. Not only my journey from, again, the basement to where we're at currently, but the journey of my teams, my family who've been on this ride with me, this crazy wave, and the progression of this journey from, again, where they were at to where they're at today. That has been so rewarding to see people's growth. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah. And in that growth, there's a lot of takeaways, right? Takeaways that I think are valuable, and then that, we try to emulate them, because it's, for me, I hate recreating the wheel. I always think that it's like, if I can copy someone else and what they're doing, then it's like, I'm not breaking any laws or anything like that. I want to see how other people who did something successfully, I want to recreate that. So unless it's trademarked or anything, it's like, and not only that, but I think the through score, the people that I have met that are the most successful, they tell you how they did it. Mm-hmm. They tell you how they do things, because part of it is a test. Part of it is a test because they know how much work went into doing what they did. And so, are you really committed to doing what you say you're going to do? Because more times than not, that person is not. It's just when they realize how much work it is, then it's like, I'll find something else to do. I'll put more hours at work, or maybe there's another way for me to create revenue. So, because I have people that ask me, how do you do the things that you do? And I tell them.
Yeah.
I tell them, but I know, my background is in advertising, and I consider myself a professional salesperson. And it's hard to sell. Mm-hmm. It's extremely hard to sell. You have to put yourself out there. You have to, take the good with the bad,
yep.
right? And then learn from the rejection, and then come at it again. Right. With the newfound knowledge that you have, which is feedback, comments, feedback, and your approach. I mean, that's also a big part of it. And but every single time, I definitely feel that I learned something from it. So, but I've also met other salespeople along the way in the other companies that I used to work for before I started doing Hispanic Pro, and it's hard to see people like curl up in the corner like a baby because they probably got rejected 3 times that day. It's tough. But I think yeah. But I think it teaches you something about yourself, right? About how the amount of dedication that you have towards what you want. Mm-hmm. So and you're willing to accept all of that, because again, it may be a no right now, but it could turn into a yes. So it's really, they're offering you the opportunity with some feedback for you to work on the things that you're doing. So yeah. And I think one of the biggest thing is to not take it personally. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do, because I know that I have in certain situations. So
every day.
Yeah. So tell me.
I agree with Ray. I wish that I had more time. I'm working harder than I think I ever have, and I've worked at some really complex jobs in the past. But the most rewarding part of it is that I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for my family. I am doing it the way that I want to, and the way that I know is both ethically and professionally the best of myself that I can put out there. So that piece has been so rewarding. And obviously being able to help what I call my ideal client, which I think back, it's my dad and the family restaurant, and feeling like those are the clients, those are the businesses that I'm helping. And I wish that my dad back then had the same opportunity to meet someone like me to help him along the way. So that, to me, it's worth all of it, all the time and effort.
Now, growing up and with your parents having, their business, are there things that still stick with you now that you learned back then? Or scenarios or even experiences that it's like, now I understand something a little bit more, or I understand why my dad made that decision?
I think my dad, and I think a lot of especially Latino entrepreneurs struggle with letting go, right? And how do you let others manage and not you yourself be the person in the business at all times? And I know my dad speaks a lot about wishing that he had done that a little bit differently. So I am hoping that in my own business, I learn how to use 60 some employees, bringing people in, teaching them how to take more ownership over the work that they're doing, and hopefully change that trajectory a little bit from where my family's business was to where mine, I hope, will be in the future.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So let's wrap up with this final question, and that is, what advice would you give someone wanting to start a new business today in this climate that we're I think that, you know, every climate is a good climate to start a business, but I think that right now in a climate like we are now, where, you know, you have, you know, every single media outlet, we're in a recession, or we're not in a recession, but we're heading there. I think there are always opportunities. Some of the biggest companies that have changed the world were started, you know, in times of recession or financial uncertainty, economic uncertainty, sorry. And why can't, like I had mentioned before, why can't it be a Latino that does that? Why can't the Latino come up with the next, you know, Airbnb or any of those companies that have really changed the way we do things? Because it's going to happen, you know, where right now, even I think a lot of the things that we use now will become obsolete. You know, they're in something new and bigger and better and more creative, or even smaller and more creative, is going to be invented. So what advice would you give to a small business owner or a budding entrepreneur who wants to start a business now?
Ooh, that's a good one. The image of entrepreneurship has been glamorized. And you said it earlier, you know, there's a ton of people who come to you and say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. And you've been to question, are they willing to put in the work? Whoever's listening to this, I want them to know. I want them to be successful. I want them to go after it. But I think any advice, and I took a few notes because I want to make sure I got this right. Be willing to be a lifelong student. Build a great team around you, like you'd mentioned. Ensure there's structure in the process of building that team. Be willing to go all in and focus on being the best at whatever your service is, whether you're attorney, the marketing. Develop a clear plan, goals, actions. And this is always the good one. Be willing to work harder than you've ever worked hard. It's hard before, and then work a little harder than that. And if you're willing to go through all that, you're ready. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree with everything you just said. And I will also say that I found that entrepreneurship can feel very lonely sometimes. And just do not let yourself be at your desk, twiddling your thumbs, trying to figure out a problem on your own. Reach out to people, reach out to so many people that are so generous, especially in the entrepreneurial community, that will gladly help you. And like we were talking about, they'll tell you what worked for them, what didn't. So don't be afraid to reach out to others and take advantage of all the resources we've been mentioning today. I think you mentioned putting a business plan in place. All these chambers and SBDCs, SCORE, et cetera, they help provide those resources on how to create a business plan, how to create a financial plan to prepare yourself to take that step for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and they help you with minority business certification, and many times they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
In which case, it's something that doesn't come out of your pocket. And then I know that the SBA, the SBDCs, you know, they all have cohorts of you mentioned Goldman Sachs and their 10,000 small businesses, that there's cohorts where you learn, you know, the I guess the science of being an entrepreneur, right? Because there is a science, it's becoming more of a science, you know, in regards to the formalities that are relevant now in entrepreneurism that didn't exist, in the past, like, you know, valuations and, you know, and all those things, which before it's like people just lend you money because it's like they were your relative.
Yeah.
You know, you went to an uncle, you went to a relative or someone that had, you know, that has money, and it's like, oh, well, if they lose it, it's not going to be a big deal. And that's different. You know, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in when it comes to entrepreneurism and also being Latino, because it's like, you know, you don't go to an uncle or a family member and ask for money, because more than likely, if you lose it, they're not going to talk to you anymore. You know, nor the general population, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, white Americans, they understand, they have a different understanding of that, in the sense like, you know what, I was lending them money because I was betting on this person's dream. We don't do that. Latinos don't do that. It's like, I think it's just crabs in a bucket mentality that we have to get over, in the sense of when it comes to being successful, just in a corporate, career job, but also in becoming an entrepreneur. And there's, I believe there's and there's very few support out there. And I think sometimes the biggest cheerleaders for you are people who don't know you, are total strangers. And I'm not saying that family doesn't support, but sometimes they're afraid for you. They're afraid for you to fail.
Absolutely.
And that's a constant. That's always a constant. So I remember when I, even at this age, where my age now, where I have my parents like, oh, you're going to Miami so much, or you're going to California so much, and now other markets that we're gonna expand into next year, and I'm like, I have to do it. There's no other. I don't have a choice. It's like there's a reason why a car, the biggest window is the one that's in front, and that's because that's all you have to look at. The rearview mirror is not so big because that's already back there, but you got to keep looking forward, and it's something that. And again, I say it in that I know that our parents and our uncles and our family, they have the best intentions. They don't want us. They don't want to see us fail. They don't want us, to see us hurt or anything like that. But at the same time, that could be, a detriment, right? Because we didn't take that calculated risk, and we listened too much instead of listening to our gut.
Right.
And I think our gut tells us a lot. It probably tells us more about what's good than what's not, and but also it could pull us away from dangerous situations where it's like I can lose a lot of money in this, and sometimes there's a lot of sweet talkers out there.
Yeah.
There is, and I think, but I'm very glad that both of you were able to join me here and talk about entrepreneurism and celebrate it, right? Because I think in this way we can we can highlight the things that as Latino entrepreneurs, the three of us, what is needed, what is needed to go forward, but also, we're here, we're not standing, we're sitting, but we're the three of us are making a go at it, and I can say truthfully that I feel my life is more rewarding for being an entrepreneur. I did those other jobs, and I was really good at them, and even now getting job offers, to put what I do on automatic pilot and go do something big for a company. But I don't want to do that because then I've been in those situations where I think it can do more and contribute more to my community and to the people that follow Hispanic Pro doing what I do, and not necessarily so that a company can become better at what they do. They'll find that person. One thing I know is that there's so many talented Latinos out there. So when someone tells me, "Oh, we can't find anyone," I'm like, "I'll help you find that person, but you better find me you better pay me a finder's fee because nada se hace gratis." And
it's a good business.
And that's the one thing also too, that in our community it's like business is business, and negocios son negocios, and it's kind of hard to understand sometimes in our community where we live in a world, the Latino side of us, where things are done, so it's like, oh, I'll help you out this time, you help me out the other time. So, but thank you again for being my guest and for in this kickoff in Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
So we have a lot to celebrate, and it's a whole month of it. So I wish you continued success in your businesses, and also if anyone sends me an email or anything and they want to know more about what you do or want to connect, can I freely do that?
Oh, of course. And thank you so much for having both of us. I had a lot of fun.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. This will be, I believe, the 6th episode of the Diversity Matters podcast, but this is the first time that we focused on entrepreneurism, and actually the first time that I record something in Chicago, because I've been recording them all over the country. So thank you so much for your attention and your time. And happy Hispanic Heritage Month 2022. Let's celebrate our culture. Let's celebrate everything that's phenomenal about being Latino in the United States. Thank you, and be well. Cool. that is good for the recording. And then,
Awesome.
and the broadcast.